I'm Don Hernandez, and this is your UWW-TV Sports Update. Whitewater football played their last road game of the month last Saturday when they took on the 4th-ranked UW River Falls Falcons. Whitewater, with a chance to redeem themselves after a conference loss, started off strong, beginning the game on a 15-point run. After a few touchdowns from the Falcons, the game was cut to a one-possession difference, but a couple of turnovers and strong defensive stands for the Warhawks sealed the game on the road, and Whitewater leads River Falls with a crucial 21-14 upset win over the Falcons.
We went into that game wanting to be in our pace mode, which is really slowing the game down, not hurrying up, no tempo, and we were able to take 38 of the minutes to their 21. And that was probably the big difference in the game, and that was our game plan, and our players executed, so that turned out really well for us.
After that win, UW-Whitewater moves to 5-1 on the season, pushing them into a three-way tie for second with River Falls and Oshkosh. Their final 4 games of the season will be played against the 4 REAC teams currently on the bottom half of these standings, starting with the return to Perkins Stadium against the UW Stout Blue Devils this Saturday. That football game between UW-Whitewater and UW Stout will be broadcasted live on UWW-TV with pregame coverage beginning at 1:40 p.m. and kickoff set for 2. We'll have more sports on UWW-TV right after this. Whitewater Volleyball played 3 matches last weekend in their 4th and final Warhawk invite of the season. In those 3 matches, Whitewater didn't skip a beat, only giving up 1 set all weekend, beating Carthage, Gustavus Adolphus, and Dubuque. Volleyball hosts 2 home matches this week, with Concordia University coming to town on Tuesday the 17th and UW Stout coming on Friday the 20th for the Dig Panichi Classic. Tuesday's match between the Warhawks and the Falcons will also be broadcasted live on UWW-TV with pregame coverage beginning 7 minutes prior to the 7 p.m. tip-off. Whitewater's campus will be very busy this Friday as the cross-country team will host the Warhawk Open at 4 p.m. This race comes less than a week after the men's and women's teams finished 2nd and 16th respectively in a 40-teams pool at Augustana's inter-regional invite. This will be both teams' final test before the upcoming REAC Championship races the following weekend in Prescott, Wisconsin. For more sports, news, and other updates, check us out at uwwtv.org. I'm Don Hernandez, and this has been your sports update on UWW-TV.